hostile government or nation. The title of such real property remains in abeyance. Anna talked a lot about abeyance during military occupation and until the conquest is made complete. Private property, unless forfeited by crimes or by offenses of the owner, can be seized only by way of military necessity for the support or other benefit of the Army of the United States. Then, that was Lincoln's general order. After, I think the reason, I'm pretty sure, I mean, although I think Lincoln was the biggest ogre that ever happened, Lenin said that long after people have forgotten Lenin's name, there will be erecting statues to Lincoln because, did I say, I deal with statutes every day. Did I say statue or statue? Statues to Lincoln because he single-handedly got a free people to voluntarily enslave themselves. Now, Lincoln obviously read a whole lot of Roman history in order to do that. But that's what happened with Lincoln. So then I think Lincoln had a change of heart because this was in the works a long time. It took the international bankers a long time before they could get a president that would go along with all this baloney. Lincoln was the most successful corporate lawyer in the United States. Attorney, I guess. Lawyer is one that knows the law. Attorney is one that turns in the United States when he became president. He wasn't supposed to be the president, but that's the way the convention went. The dude that was supposed to be president left and went to England to get instructions from his master. In the meantime, Lincoln had a very persuasive campaign manager and he got the nomination. Now the South says he gets the nomination, we're not going to come back, we're seceding. And he got the nomination and they didn't show up on the first Monday in December of 1860, and that was the end of the Congress. We haven't had a Congress since. But I believe Lincoln was going to, and the reason for all that was that this war was about property. We don't have the right to own it and somebody else wanted it. So Lincoln, I think, was going to not sign the Reconstruction Acts. I think it was going to push him through because the Reconstruction Acts were the thing that took our property. So I think Lincoln was assassinated, and then Johnson said, hell no, I don't want the Reconstruction Acts. Johnson even put out a proclamation for Thanksgiving because we finally have peace on the land, is what he put out a proclamation for. And so they impeached him quickly. So they impeached Johnson, and by the end of his impeachment, hanging on by one hair of his chinny chin chin, he signed the Reconstruction Acts. He didn't fight him anymore. So, you know, I think that may be called coercion in this day and age. I have no idea, but I think it worked. So Johnson signed the Reconstruction Acts. Now the Reconstruction Acts, you got to always look at these things in the statutes at large when you do any research. Reconstruction Acts right here, 1887, they're about, it's not very big, but this is the thing that laid the military law on the land. And I wrote to the Library of Congress and said, have the Reconstruction Acts ever been repealed? And they said they can find no evidence that they have ever been repealed. So they're still on the land, okay? So that was okay. Then we got to have a justification for this military conquest. So we've got a Solicitor General named William Whiting under Lincoln. He's a Solicitor General. So he writes this book called War Powers Under the Constitution of the United States: Military Arrests, Reconstruction, and Military Government. Okay? He writes this tome and justifies what they do. William Whiting says, much like Lincoln, actually it's just a furtherance of Lincoln's General Order 100. It has been held by the Supreme Court that the laws, whether in writing or evidenced by the usage and customs of the conquered or ceded country, continue in force until altered by the new sovereign. So they didn't rewrite the laws, this new sovereign called military powers. The local laws of a conquered country, bear in mind that the second printing of William Whiting's book was in 1871. We're talking all about belligerents. That would be us, the South. We're talking about belligerents and how wrong we were and about the enemies and all that stuff, okay? So 1871, hadn't they all come back in by 1867? Hadn't the military, the Reconstruction Acts itself, when they went into the southern states and raped and pillaged and burned until they capitulated to the 14th Amendment, hadn't they all come in by 1871? What did I say, 1871? Yeah, they had. So there weren't any belligerents anymore yet. Whiting continues to honor his original words that he wrote before they had all come back into the Union. The local laws of a conquered country may be changed not only by the lawmaking power of the conquering country, but by virtue of belligerent rights of the conqueror. So they can do pretty much the local laws of a conquered country of which our army holds military occupation have no force or effect whatever except by our permission. Now let's go back to Rome. Remember I talked about those soldiers being in those states and raping and pillaging and plundering until the people capitulated to their will? Remember? You remember all that, right? When they went out, what did they leave the people with? What kind of belief did they leave the people with? What did the people believe at that point? If we don't do what they say, they're going to come back and chop our ass, right? That's what they said. So they were cowered into the belief that somebody was bigger and stronger and more powerful from them, and they left the army in those states long enough to give those people that belief. So now they were really, truly the belief of a conquered country. It has been asserted that the municipal laws of a belligerent territory remain in force propria vigor until altered by military orders. But although such laws may have been tacitly adopted or the enforcement thereof may have been permitted, it is not because these laws retained any validity propria vigor. Their only validity was derived from the tacit or express sanction and adoption thereof by the will of the commander-in-chief of the invading army. Now, why is it when we elect a president, you see the results on election evening and all that stuff, do they talk about presidents or do they talk about commander-in-chief?
Commander-in-chief.
And commander-in-chief, is that commander-in-chief of us or the army? Should be only the military, shouldn't it? Yet, we embrace him. I mean, you know, today, by the way, every one of us is a war criminal. Our commander-in-chief made a strike on a country with which a sovereign nation with which we are not at war. That's a war crime. And it is us. Every one of us. Because the people outside this country make no designations between the government and us. When we go traveling somewhere outside this nation, we are hated. And I am. Hey, that's why when I'm outside this nation, ich spreche Deutsch. So we're called alien enemies. Now, William Whiting in his book does say there are two kinds of folks that are exempt from military rule. Anybody have a clue what kind of folks those would be? Well, there's a hint in the 1040 IRS booklet if you've ever read it. Anybody ever read it? No wonder you paid taxes. Are you crazy? If you'd read the damn booklet, you would never have gone further than line 21. I mean, come on. So it says in the instruction booklet that this applies to, this volunteering applies to everything except non-resident aliens. Non-resident aliens are exempt from filling out that form. William Whiting says aliens are exempt from military rule. Das ist, warum ich spreche Deutsch. I'm definitely an alien. So alien and military. Well, Scalia did not like the religious acts. We have, what is it? Religious Freedom Act and a Religious Land and Institutionalized Persons Act. Scalia said that any man or woman who holds those in their hands or brings them before them is a law unto themselves because they are free. They are exempt from anything else. So when we actually don't even have to have two of them. In Texas, we have the Texas Civil Practice and Remedies Code, Chapter 110. Anytime you go anywhere that sucker precedes you, you put in, file it in your county courthouse, say, all my actions are pursuant to Civil Texas and Practice and Remedies Code, Chapter 110, because that gives you religious freedom, and you're not subject to all this junk. They can't attack somebody's religion, and they can't even ask you what it is, because it's your belief, isn't it? So aliens and religions are free from this. Whiting says they're exempted. An alien owes no allegiance or obedience to our government or to our Constitution, laws, or proclamations. A citizen subject is bound to obey them all. I guess you know what you are now, don't you? How many are citizens? How many? Come on, get those hands. Oh, we see a citizen. How many are aliens? All right, how many have religious convictions? Okay, I pronounce you free.
And I haven't paid any taxes since 1985.
I can beat you.
You need an attitude.
You need to be as old as I am. See, I'm older than you. I'm 78. Who's got me beat?
How much?
78.
Yeah, you're 7 years ahead.
See? I'm older than everybody in the room. And you thought I was a spring chicken, which I am. So, hence, it would be worse than useless to her. Oh, he's saying that new appointments, blah, 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 blah. He's talking about the courts and the power of the judges. If they would allow a jury, it would probably be hostile to the union, and the powers of judges under present laws would be totally inadequate to meet the demands of these turbulent times. Hence, it would be worse than useless to erect judicial courts before peace is completely restored. What's the remedy? What? Peace. So they can get away with anything until what? Peace is completely restored. Therefore, it can hardly be deemed advisable to interfere with the stern, effective, but necessary government of hostile people by military power until Congress shall, by legislative act, recognize a state of peace. Now, does that say that Congress must enact peace? What does it say? What did I say?
Whatever they shall.
I said recognize. Recognize a state of peace. My son on December 17th, 14th last year put up there's a website called, I don't know, it's the White House website at .gov. And it says if you put up a petition for people to sign and they get 1,000 signatures, they're going to take it under consideration in the White House. My son put up a petition for peace, real short, little one-paragraph thing. That sucker went down in 2 hours. That's how long it took him to read the website and monitor it. That went down for 2 hours. After 2 hours. And they said it'd be a couple of weeks before it was back up. It was 2 months before it came back up, and they kept assuring people that everything that was on there when it went down would be there. Gosh darn, when it came back up, guess wasn't there? What wasn't there? Now, if they're going to crash a website because of the word peace, does that tell you that they might be just a little bit afraid of the word peace? Now, so Whiting told us what they're going to do, which is take everything. What's our solution? Peace. Now, I have a petition of peace that I gave to Ed, and he says it's too complicated, you don't understand it, it's not right for you. Am I quoting you correctly?
I don't think so.
That's what Carrie told me. That's what Carrie told me. That's what Carrie told me. Carrie, no, he thinks outside the box, but he listens really carefully. If we're in Rome, and we're Roman citizens, and we're under military law or Roman law, what would we do if we were Roman? And we were unhappy, like we're unhappy with this situation. My son was in Rome a couple of weeks ago, and he found this new place he hadn't gone to, and it was a bridge called, excuse me in Italians while I slaughter your language, Diocidoni, the Bridge of 10 Women. In 1944, because Italy, the Italians weren't as subservient as the other nations when the Nazis came in, and you know, we had Mussolini and all that. Nazi fascism was what they say on this bridge. There were a lot of partisans in Italy, and it was a real problem for them because, you know, they'd snipe from the hills and they'd burn up the planes during the night, and they were just a big problem for the Germans. So the Germans told the citizens that they had to turn the partisans in, and they didn't. So they held a lottery, and they put women's names in it, and they pulled 10, they thought this would be funny, to pull 10 names out of that hat that were girls and women, and they hung those girls and women from that bridge, the 10 of them, Italian women. So if that had been you, what would you have done? We'd have sat on our ass and said, who's going to fix this? That's what we would have done. So what did the Romans do? We're talking Romans, and Romans have a different, I mean, they've been at this for a long time, and the Romans themselves, they're pretty fierce people. So the Romans went to the German caserna where the soldiers were, and they rounded them all up, and they herded them down to the Tiber, and they killed them and threw them in the Tiber under the bridge where those women had hung. They didn't find that funny at all. And they said that's how much, because the Romans did that to the women so that it would make the people afraid, and they'd turn the partisans in. And they did just the opposite. We don't have a whole lot of Roman in us. I mean, I can tell that right away. But because we don't rise up and rebel. I mean, people get really upset about the Second Amendment, but you're not using firearms for the Second Amendment. The Second Amendment says it's for us to stand up against a militaristic government or a government out of control, and we don't exercise the Second Amendment. So I don't know why everybody gets their shorts in a wad when they threaten our guns. I mean, really, do you? So. Well, they control us. And how do they control us now? That's a good, I'm glad you brought that up. What? False flag. What does that do? We are so busy being afraid. We are so busy being distracted. We have our own, I mean, they've erected their own coliseums for us. We have the NFL. We have the football games. I mean, you know, we might as well go down to the Flavian Amphitheater, which is what the Coliseum is really called. And they can pitch bread at us because it's the same thing. It's distraction. It keeps us from realizing that we are the power. This is our country, and we want our republic back, and we want the military gone. And oh, by the way, they told us how to do it. We declare peace. We have had so many wars: the wars on poverty, the drug war decimated. That's the one that really sticks in my craw, because the war on drugs, after that was declared, It was a pogrom. Everybody know what a pogrom is? It's a deliberate assault by civilians, by military people, where they destroy them. They did it to the Jews. The Russians, Cossacks, were always doing that to the Jews. They had pogroms, and they'd go in and burn the villages and kill the people. Well, it was a deliberate assault on the black race. People, the blacks, weren't like they are now. But when you go in and you pick up a guy in New York for having a doobie, and you give him life sentence because he's black, and his family never sees him again, that means his mother, his kids, his father, his aunts, uncles never see that man again, and they never have the benefit of that man's wisdom or presence. That's what they did. They used the war on drugs to decimate the black community. And it worked. I mean, we got a bunch of rappers and God knows what now, but they're not the same people they were you cannot take a man out of a society. You can't do it. We need men, we need women, we need both of us. But when they absolutely take all the males out and leave these people to rot, of course they go on welfare. What are they supposed to do? Their bread earner went away. Of course they get herded to the projects where they treat them like rats. I mean, and then what would you do if you were confined in a project for a while? You'd come out probably spouting rap and swearing, you know, like they do. But it decimated the black race and made them into something that I don't recognize. And that's me. That hurts my heart because they're Americans too. So they have divided us, they've done everything in the world, but they have every right to do it because Whiting says they can. And this is available, download by the way. I have it on my iPad. You can download William Whiting's book and read it if you so want to. But, I mean, you don't even have to buy it. It's long and laborious, and you will absolutely scream when you read that book because you will say, how can you? How can you? So what Whiting says is, you know, the Romans controlled the citizens, let's just call them what they were, citizens, with thought. Whiting says, we just to be on the safe side, because we can't have the armies in the streets because that makes them rebel even sooner, we're going to use the courts. Those courts are all military courts, every last one of them. And we go in and they tax us. Now, does this document say you can be taxed? This one you can't see, but I promise, you have to trust me when I tell you it's the Declaration of Independence. Can you tax under this document? No. What kind of property do we have? Unalienable, guys, unalienable. Unalienable property.
Stolen property.
Who stole what?
It's all stolen.
I've never stolen a thing in my life, Ed Branham. What?
The government stole it.
The government did not steal it. You believe the government stole it. You believe I don't believe that. I know where they hid it when they allegedly took it. Oh, and when did they take it? 1933, I can tell you when they took it. Emergency Banking Act, 1933, and they said you can't hold any gold or anything. Now, Whiting said, or Lincoln, both of them actually said they were going to take our money away from us. Did they? How'd they take it away? Monetarily. Good one. Oh, voluntarily. No, we didn't. Everybody blames the Federal Reserve. Here's a little something they did. I digress, but I'm going to take this little digression because there's only one thing here that I'm here to talk about, and that's the solution, and that's peace, because that is the do-all, end-all, and it comes down overnight. And I can tell you from being in Berlin on that fateful night when they opened Checkpoint Charlie, that everything changes in a heartbeat, in an instant. When we have peace and we're serious about it, and we tell these jerks, no more, everything changes. Everything. It goes back to this, because they have no justification to hold us. Well, now I forgot what I was going to tell you before I digressed. Oh, this. Money, okay. Federal Reserve Act wasn't all that bad. Federal Reserve Act said, well, they're going to have a central clearinghouse and all the money is going to run through there and there's going to be a profit, but 6% of the profit would go to the Federal Reserve banks, 94% of the profit would go to the U.S. Treasurer, the Treasury of the United States of America, by the way, until 1921, would go to the U.S. Treasurer in order to buy gold to stabilize the dollar. That's not so bad, is it? It's not so bad, except for the central bank thing. But, okay, if this is, well, I'm not going to justify that thing either. So then the other part is the Federal Reserve Act had a finite life of 20 years. It was enacted on December 23rd, 1913. It died on December 23rd, 1933. Every time people say, well, we need to get the Federal Reserve, I think, oh, adults, you know, how many times have I told you about the Glass-Steagall Act? Nobody cares. In the spring of 1933, anticipating, of course, the demise of the Federal Reserve Act, they passed the Glass-Steagall Act, which you will hear rumors that Clinton repealed the Glass-Steagall Act. Clinton repealed the one little teeny, see these sections, see these paragraphs? They're called sections. Clinton repealed one of these sections out of the Glass-Steagall Act about the regulation. The Glass-Steagall Act had an infinite life. It was in place until Congress repealed it. Has Congress repealed it? Nope. So the profit thing, in the Glass-Steagall Act, it says that 6% of the profits will go to the member banks. Oh, it starts a new corporation, by the way, which throughout the Glass-Steagall Act is called the corporation. So when the Federal Reserve Act said the Federal Reserve, the new one says the corporation. It's the same act, except it substitutes. Then the corporation for the Federal Reserve. So Federal Insurance Deposit Corporation was born. That's the corporation it talks about. And 6% went to the member banks. This is what Congress signed in 1933. 96% of the profits from the operation go to, anybody got a guess? The Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve. That's Mr. Rothschild, Baron Rothschild and his palace. The Federal Reserve. So now, at that time we had silver certificates. So they're doing the central money and they're churning it through the washing machine and everything that goes through, whatever profit there is from it, we know how that's split up. How many years do you think it would take, taking all those profits and keeping the profits, before the Federal Reserve owned the currency that it was laundering? Well, we have a hint because that's when the silver certificate went away and the actual owners of the note appeared on the dollar. I forget. That's one of the things I don't keep in my head about when the silver certificate, when this happened. But that's when the Federal Reserve owned all the money. And they told us that in Lincoln's General Order, didn't they? We're going to take your money. So we don't have any money. What happens if you sign up for peace and they hear you? You get your money back. It has to be weights and measures again. It has to be lawful. States have to pay their debts in gold and silver. In an instant. That's what happens when we sue for peace. All across America, I'm not favoring you guys in the Republic of Texas because Once that happens, it's going to be chaos, and then you can build your republic in the ashes, you know. I mean, you know, people are scrambling. They don't know what to do because they don't have anybody telling them what to do. One of the things that's been lost in this country is the word independence.
By design, though. Lost by design.
You think that's part of the propaganda?
Sure.
You're kidding me.
No. Dessie, I wouldn't get you.
I'm shocked. We're like trained mice. We do exactly what we're trained to do. We believe all this stuff. You see, it's not them that's doing it to us. It's our belief. I am.
They told us our belief. They told us our belief.
Not me, baby.
Well, you're special.
I read that puppy every night of my teenage life.
Yeah.
I know what it says. And besides that, you know, I was born in Utah. I come from pioneering people. They were fiercely independent. And I learned at an early age what independence was. And I was raised in a state that, well, that's actually why I'm here. I want you to help me. I was raised in a state of utopia compared to what this world is now. As I said, I'm 78 years old. I spent my teenage years in the golden 50s, and it truly was a magical time. And more than that, even, I lived in a state that was filled with love. There was such a sense of security and love in where I was raised that it was tangible. It was a beautiful place. Nobody had any fear. The policemen wore blue. You know, my sister would get dragged, not me, but my older sister would get dragged. She was kind of an imp. And so she would throw rocks, there was an old cleaners up on Main Street that was glass, and she would throw rocks at the glass and break it, and the cops would come by and put all the kids that were doing that in the car and drop them off at their homes one by one. Mrs. Webster, Sandy's at it again. She was, okay, I'll take care of it. So they left it up to the parents to take care of. That was the way I was raised. We had no fear. We had nothing to fear. We were poor, but there's no shame or fear in being poor. We were honest, we were honorable, and we were raised in a land of goodness. That's what I want the children of this country to feel. I want us to bring that, and not just Texas, this country. I want these people to feel the warm and fuzzies.
It won't go that way, or it won't be that way ever again.
That's what you believe. That's not what I believe. I believe it will. Give it a shot.
Well, I'm going to hope for the best, but expect the worst.
See, we're always afraid. We're always afraid. What?
Pendulum always swings.
Attaboy! Do you believe it will happen? Okay, all right. Well, we have more toys and tools than we had when I was a kid and we used to go out and ride my bicycle. Yeah, that age is gone.
Look at the people raising the kids. Look at the kids that are raising the kids that they don't know how to raise kids.
How did they do that? How did they break the family down? How did this military government break the family down? Oh.
Put the wife to work.
Not only that, women's lived. You women don't need to be in the household. You need to get out and plow. I mean, come on. They did it in so many ways and so changed the face of it. If you're not a feminist, you're not worth pulling your pants on every day. I mean, they did it in so many ways. It's so subtle, the propaganda, and we are so susceptible to believing that propaganda if we're not absolutely strong. And the other thing is, we're looking for a leader. We're not looking in the mirror to see where the answer is. We're looking for a leader. What the hell do I care what Trump does? Well, I really care that he bombed Syria, but what do I care what he does? He's not my leader. He has nothing to do with what I do. I mean, I know in my Constitution, they're confined to a 10-mile square area and they can't come out. And that's my belief and my reality. So we were all afraid of the IRS. Are any of us afraid of the IRS anymore? What? Have you not appealed to tax court? What?
Revocation of elections.
You didn't go to tax court and get your do not...
I just sent him to the two different places that Anna talked about, registered letter,
Well, if you went to all that trouble, surely to God you'd sign my peace petition. Wouldn't you just do a signature to set yourself free? Would you help me? Okay, I'm asking for help because I know there are 52 signatures on this thing, and it changed our world, and it gave us the right to own property. 52 signatures. I don't care if it's 52, 550, I don't care. But we have to have a serious, we have to show a serious effort that enough people, and how much, I think 1,000 is enough, quite frankly, but I want more. Enough people care about peace that they would sign a document so we can go. Now, I sent my son to Rome a couple of weeks ago, not realizing it was Easter, because when he lived in Rome, and one of his teachers at the Vatican was a Monsignor that my son called Padre Jorge. And 2 years ago when he was in Rome, he ran across Padre Jorge because he was able to search him out. And it's when he found him, he says, "Padre Jorge!" And the Pope's Swiss guards protected the Pope from being attacked by this crazy man. So Padre Jorge and Cray had a talk about it, and the Pope said that he would be more than happy to embrace a peace declaration from the American people, and that he would have his Secretary of State sign off onto it to get it to him. I would like to be able to send, and so I sent Cray to, because I just had a feeling that this was the time. So I sent Cray over there, and he called me and he said, "Do you know it's Easter this weekend? I can't even find a priest, much less a pope." I mean, there was nobody on the streets. It was Easter, the big mass celebration of their religion. I mean, who'd have thought it? There are other countries that will back us. There are other countries that will give us recognition, even if our own country doesn't right away. And our own country would fear peace as much as we used to fear the IRS. It's a word they don't want to hear. It's a concept they don't want to embrace, and it will set us all free. So I just need peace proclamations, signed declarations.
Can I ask a question?
No!
Please.
This is a tirade. What you want to know?
I'll sign your petition. I'll be the first one to sign it. I want to know what's going to happen.
They can't read your signature. I'm not asking you to print your name.
I don't print. I don't print. But what's going to happen if your peace thing doesn't work? It's going to be like when we went to school, and we tell the bully, "Don't do that again," and he does it, black and white.
No, we're not asking for them. We're making a declaration of peace. What happened here? They had to go to war over it. Do you think we will? Yes, the one I sent you, that you said was not what the Republic needed.
No, I did not.
Keep it going.
If you read my,
Oh my God, what a beautiful signature.
I thought you said you couldn't read it. He's been practicing 71 years. He ought to be.
That's amazing. You can't read mine.
I'm the John Hancock.
You're the John Hancock of it, baby. No question about it. Ed, the time is right for peace.
Let me have you, Bluey.
We lose nothing if it doesn't work. We gain everything if it does. It doesn't cost you a dime. You don't have to do anything more than that.
200 million signatures would be a whole lot better, right?
200 signatures would be great. Put it on Facebook. Get other people to sign it. Get it from Ed. Put it out there. I'll give Ed an address where the people, if they want to sign it, can send it. 200,000 would be.
No, I'm talking about 200 million.
200,000 would be over the top.
And
What can they say? And when we present a declaration of peace and we have other nations that know it's there, "Oh, gee, we don't want peace." That sounds pretty stupid, doesn't it? these warmongers. And you better do it fast, because I just bought a book the other day by Daniel Ellison called The Doomsday Machine, and they have enough nukes. All it takes is one person to hit a nuke button, and the planet is gone, because it's all automated. If the United States hits one, and they try not to look like the first striker, by the way, then Moscow's is automatically programmed to come this way, and so are all the other. They're all programmed to go off. And it only takes 2 or 3 before you have nuclear war, and we can never grow a crop again, so we're all going to die. And it's not just the presidents of the countries that have the ability to hit that button. It's delegated. We don't know who the hell can push the button, but a lot of people can, and it's Dr. Strangelove all over again. We got the madman at the airbase pushing the button.
Probably go simultaneously. We'll never know who was the
Exactly, exactly. But it's over for us. We can't have nuclear weapons. And we have 7,000 in this country. China, when they built their nuclear weapons, they say, how many does it take to end the world? Maybe about 10. Okay, we're only going to build 290 nuclear weapons, because that's overkill, right? Like, you know, if it only takes 10, 290 ought to be just sufficient. Why build 7,000? It costs money to maintain them.
Well, how the banker's going to make money if he ain't spending it?
I really don't care.
Well,
I'm tired of the bankers making money off of you and me.
I mean,
Oh, one more thing.
Dudley Butler was correct when he said all wars are bankers' wars, and he's right.
And Eisenhower said it when he went out of office. Don't ever go to war. Okay, I'm going to give you, since you're so accommodating, I'm going to give you a big hint here about taxes. All taxes on the people are commercial in nature, because it's the only way they can get away with it. Even if they're trying to take it by military, I mean, they can't come up and say, you're going to support the Army, I'm going to tax you now. When we get picked up, thrown in jail, fined, any of those things, it's all commercial. I went to see somebody in Bastrop because I've got a friend, I'm taking him off the tax rolls in about 2 weeks. And, well, I went to see an attorney that actually sits in the county courthouse, and he's the one in charge of it. And I said to him, what's your authority to tax? And he said, well, it's constitutional. And I said, well, I've got a constitution right here. So I always carry a constitution of some kind. So I handed him this bylaw, corporate bylaw, and he says right here, all real property and tangible personal property in the state, unless exempt as required or permitted by the Constitution, whether owned by natural persons or corporations other than municipal, shall be taxed in proportion to its value. Okay, let's go back to the first line. Here's the hint. All real property and tangible personal property, both of those are commercial terms. When you look up what property is in the statutes, it says property. Property is private. That belongs to you. Then you look up real property. That's a fictitious thing, and it's a commercial term, and they're taxing commercial property. And then we come to the real kicker, and real tangible personal property also is a commercial term. So you're a business, and they're taxing you in this state. Anybody know where in this state is? Does it say in Texas?
No, that in this state is a deception. You don't know what it means.
Oh, I do know what it means. I mean,
That means in the state of Washington, D.C.
Nope. Yeah, it's federal. It means it's federal. It's a federal term. So if it doesn't say in the state or in Texas, you're being taxed federally. Could that possibly be military in nature? What? You're dying to say something.
In the first definitions of tax, property tax, in the passed the Constitution when they did, the first two legislatures that met defined property tax, ad valorem tax. It's on banks, railroads, corporations.
No.
And after that, that's the only definition.
No, you're wrong. It wasn't in the Constitution, but you're
It's
absolutely
in the taxing authority.
right. I went back and researched it to the beginning, and in 1876, they passed the Property Tax Act, and it said it applies to bankers, and corporations. Yeah. So it's can only, but see, even then they can't tax ad valorem because a tax is on the net profit of a business. So they don't have you fill out an assessment, so they don't know how much money you made. How much money did your house make last year? Well, then I guess it's not taxable because you had zero profit, so I guess the percentage of taxes would be zero. We fall for the stupidest things. We believe when we get that tax thing and it doesn't even have a dollar sign on it, that we're supposed to pay in dollars.
That's right, you pay them in beans.
Yeah. I mean, we have been so, the propaganda in this country has been so effective that, like Lenin said, Lincoln laid down the path for us to voluntarily enslave ourselves.
All the things that they said in that book, Whiting said in his book, was in Field Manual 53, right after second, every bit of it. Somebody got it closed.
Got to have that military power, don't you?
That's just what they did.
What? Questions? What did you say?
I was wondering, people are milling around, picking up stuff. Is somebody going to close the meeting?
I'm through.
Excuse me? You said it's closed already?
Amen. Goodbye.
What's going on here?
The meeting itself is very long.
Oh, well, we're just going to kind of...
Everybody signed this that's going to?
Everybody signed it.
Yeah, I think you, how many signatures you got on there?
I don't know. Promote. I want you guys to stop dinking with this other stuff and start promoting peace. We want to change, don't we? Did you not sign it, Ed?
I didn't sign
He
it.
did.
Well then, oh, okay, I've got it. I've got it. All right.
And one,
Atta girl, you keep track of them for me.
Who in their right mind would be against peace?
Hey, that's my argument. And it's real easy. You don't have to send in forms or anything.
So what did Mr. Trump do?
He bombed Syria, 100 missiles last night. Yep. Yep.
You gotta keep the emergency war powers going.
We have emergency war powers. We're in the middle of, which war are we in now? We still have the war on drugs. War on terror.